Crusaders coach Rob Penney, folks, is under a bit of pressure. He dropped a C-bomb at a press conference yesterday when referring to one of New Zealand's journalists who just asked him a bunch of kind of negative questions. But we'll go through kind of what was said, what happened. Is it fair? What's kind of being talked about compared to the 2023 squad in terms of the record and the players themselves? And you guys can let us know your thoughts. So what actually happened? Rob Penney, he's got a big match up against the Blues this weekend. Must-win match. One News, who's one of the news stations down here in NZ, they send one of their journalists along to ask him a bunch of questions. He's not a sports journalist, as far as I'm aware. And he just keeps asking Rob Penney all these quite negative questions. Things such as, do the players support you as coach? How are the players feeling about your performance as coach? Where does the blame lie? Do you take responsibility for these series of losses? Will you step aside? Would you take a director of rugby role? So the guy is just kind of laying into Rob Penney with a bunch of negative questions. And to be fair, Rob Penney doesn't drop a C-bomb to his face. He does answer the questions in a bit of a kind of prickly manner, but he doesn't swear. However, while he's still got the microphone on him and he's going to finish the press conference as he's walking away once it's all finished, he basically just says, he's a disgrace, that C-bomb. Who's he? And the press officer for the Crusaders kind of, I think, knows he's still mic'd up, and he says, I'll talk to you about it later. No, talk to me about it now. So, Rob Penney not appreciative of the way he's been interviewed. Journalists ask dumb questions some of the time. I don't know if I could ask any better questions. Probably not. It's a bit of a thankless job, I would imagine, and sometimes those interviews aren't that enlightening. Some players give good interviews, some coaches likewise, but a lot of them are pretty much by the numbers. So I feel like the journalist maybe could have taken a hint, but I also think he was reading from a list of pre-prepared questions. So he just kind of kept poking that bear and got called a C-bomb, not to his face, but in reply. Is it fair? I mean, the coach cops the responsibility. That's just how the game works. If you saw the other day, Darren Coleman, the Waratahs coach, he's been told he's not going to have his contract renewed at the end of the season. They gave a press conference, him and the CEO, and he took it really classily. I mean, Darren Coleman basically said, some of the stuff that the journalists write is pretty hurtful. Like he kind of feels it. I don't know if he used the word hurtful, but he said he feels it, like that kind of pressure. But also that the board has to make a decision. They let him go, the same as when he picks players or drops players. The buck stops with the coach. If they have a good season, it's because the coach did well. If they have a bad season, it's because the coach did poorly. So he took it in a pretty classy manner. Rob Penney hasn't had his contract cancelled or anything. He's still got 1 year to go after this year. But he's certainly under a bit of pressure. But is some of that fair? Like I said, the questions you get if you've got a losing record, you're going to get that. I think that's just part of the job. You have to deal with that. But is it actually fair? If we're looking at the record from last year, certainly it's a massive fall off a cliff. Last year, the Crusaders finished with a 10-4 record, so 10 wins, 4 losses. They finished second on the table, just behind the Chiefs. And then the final, they go to Hamilton and they beat the Chiefs for, as I said, their 7th title in a row. That's part of the reason there's extra pressure on the Crusaders, because they won last year, they had a good record last year, and they won the 6 years before that as well. So 7 years in a row. You would expect to be a contender again, despite the fact that there's a coaching change at the top. However, there's been a lot of changes in the Crusaders squad. Now, they've had a thing about kind of building depth, and they've always got guys who seem to fill in those slots through the academy. But if we just take a quick look at the squad that played in Hamilton in the 2023 final, you'll see there's a lot of changes. The front row for that 2023 final was Tamaiti Williams, Cody Taylor, and Ollie Jaeger. Well, Tamaiti Williams is still with the Crusaders, but he's played 2 games, I think for 47 minutes this season. Cody Taylor was on a self-enforced sabbatical where he just took a break from rugby. He's also played 2 games. And Ollie Jaeger's with Munster. So they haven't had that same front row. The locks was Scott Barrett and Sam Whitelock. Scott Barrett's been injured. He's played 5 games, so less than half the season. And Sam Whitelock's in France, so he's gone. So far, of the type 5, you haven't had one player who's been a regular for the Crusaders this year. The back row is more or less the same. Like 3 of the faces there, Havili Talitui, Christie and Leo Willie. Those guys have all been regulars for the Crusaders this year, playing, kind of 9 games, 10 games, 12 games. So that area is one that's a bit of consistency. Mitch Drummond started the final at 9 last year. He's played 11 games this year, but only 4 starts. He's kind of at the tail end of his career. They have been bringing through Hotham, the youngster, to play 9. Richie Mo'unga's in Japan, so he's been a massive loss at 10. So you've not really had the same 9-10 combo at all. And then the midfield as well. You had Jack Goodhue and Braden Ennor. Goodhue's in France. Ennor's been out for the season. So the midfield's different. How about the outside backs? You had Fainga Nuku, you had McLeod, and you had Jordan. Jordan's missed the entire season injured. Fainga Nuku is in France, and McLeod has been playing in the midfield. That's more of his spot. Like, I think Sever Reece was out last year. So that's kind of why McLeod ended up being a bit of a Johnny on the spot at the end of last year. But looking at it, the front row is not the same. The second row is not the same. The back row is the same. Half of the halves. The midfield, no. And the outside backs, no. The only real benefit I can see this year is that Sever Reece is having a career year. Like a career best year. I don't know if it's his best year, but he's having a bloody good year. He's been playing the house down. That's the one thing the 2024 squad has over the 2023 squad. But there's a lot of guys missing. Does that mean the Crusaders are justified going 2-10? Of course not. The Crusaders should absolutely be in the top 8. As I said, they've always got the ability to bring through guys, and I'm pretty sure if Scott Robertson was still in charge, he would at least be in the 8. You know, he wouldn't have a 2-10 record. So there is a reason the Crusaders are not as good this year as they were last year. The squad is not the same. They're missing a lot of guys. Will Jordan is world class. Sam Whitelock, went to a World Cup final, and a lot of these guys are top All Blacks. They are missing from the squad in 2024. But still, the pressure being on is for a reason. This probably just adds to it. You got to take that microphone off before you start dropping those C-bombs. But anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts. Do you reckon Rob Penney gets to keep on next year? As I said, he's got a 2-year contract, so he's still got 1 year to go. Do you think he ends up getting shown the door? Or do the Crusaders just go through this backs to the wall? Is this the kind of key moment they need with their coach being questioned like this, where the players step up? They beat the Blues this week. They beat Moana Pacifica next week. They get to a quarterfinal, go up to Eden Park, beat the Blues, and then go on a rampaging one to win the whole thing. Maybe. You guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.